Howdy, it's that time where I talk again about all the movies that I've watched over this past period. Last time I did from January to March. This time I'm doing it quarterly this year, so this is going to be everything that I watched in the months of April to June. And it's about as simple as that, so let's just get to it. Got my phone here with my list. The first movie that I saw in cinemas in April was Air, which is a movie that everybody was kind of talking about when it first came out, saying, yeah, man, it was pretty good. I can't believe they got me to care about shoes. And I was kind of sitting there like, yeah, I mean, it's alright, I guess. But like, it's kind of just a story about some businessmen making some business meetings and say they succeed. And I already knew they were going to succeed. I knew they were going to make the Air Jordans. I knew that existed. I knew that they were going to succeed. So there wasn't that much dramatic tension. And it just wasn't like that great for that reason for me, I would say. I think it was well made. I liked it okay, but it's probably not a movie that I'm ever going to watch again. You know, it's just solid. It's fine. It's both of those things, I suppose. Then, the next movie that I saw in cinemas in April was John Wick 4, which I saw with my dad. We had a hell of a good time with this movie. I mean, it's dumb, sure, but like, there's just an undeniable fun factor here, of course. There's that scene, for instance, where John Wick has like this shotgun with incendiary bullets. Is that how you say it? Basically, he's shooting fire with a shotgun, and it's all shot within this one take that's like this aerial shot over like the house that he's in, and it's just like, it looks like that game Miami Vice, I think it's called, Hotline Miami. I mean, it was just cool as hell. This is a fun as fuck movie. I love it so damn much. Then, speaking of movies that I absolutely loved, I then saw Evil Dead Rise, which is probably my favorite movie of the year, up there with another movie that is the polar opposite called Of an Age. But yeah, Evil Dead Rise is very much more the expected movie for me to love, and boy do I. It is just absolutely hectic. They're not afraid of putting kids in mortal danger and even killing kids in violently hilarious ways. I may regret saying that, but it's true. This movie's funny as fuck. It's violent as fuck. It's just everything that I wanted it to be. And that's not even true either, because I didn't even have that high expectations for this movie. Like, I thought I was going to like it, but like, I wasn't that sure. But then I was just absolutely blown away. Then I saw Beau is Afraid, which I'm much less confident about my opinion on, because Beau is Afraid is a movie that I'm so conflicted about. I'm so confused about how I feel about that movie, because I love some things about it, particularly in the first half, but then that second half, it turns into fucking absolute nonsense, and I'm like, what even is this anymore? I don't know, man. Once he enters the attic, I'll say there's a scene where he enters an attic and he finds something. He makes a discovery. And at that point, I checked out. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Beau is Afraid is like all things from beautiful to absolutely stupid waste of time. I don't know. I wouldn't say don't watch it, but I don't know if I could recommend it at the same time. It's just one of those movies, you know? Now we're up to the month of May, and in cinemas, I saw Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which is a movie that kind of reinvigorated my love for the MCU, and I ended up rewatching a bunch of Marvel movies after seeing it, which I'll get to when I talk about my rewatches. I thought the villain was fantastic. I thought the, emotional impact hit fucking hard, especially when it came to, of course, Rocket Raccoon and his backstory and all that stuff. It was just a solid, goddamn good movie, and probably the best Marvel movie since Endgame, I would say. I think that's particularly a hot take, but yeah, I would agree with that. And it was a lot better than I was expecting it to be as well. I do love the Guardians films, but I don't know, I've been falling out on Marvel, I've been just caring less and less with each film to come, but Guardians 3 proved that they still have something there. At least James Gunn still had something there. Maybe they're all gonna suck now that he's out. I don't know, we'll see. Then I saw Infinity Pool, which is a movie that I think has a great concept and is a movie that really made me think about it a lot. I talked about it a lot with my wife after we saw it, and it's a movie that has a lot of interesting elements to it, but I didn't really enjoy watching it. I didn't enjoy it in the moment. I kind of enjoyed it after the fact, but I do think that that's kind of a good sign of a film, if I'm being honest, because it did make me think. It like invited me into trying to figure it out. Even if I didn't love it, there was something about it that was just like, it drew me in, and I ended up really like respecting Infinity Pool, even if I didn't love watching it during the moment. And I think I need to rewatch it knowing where it's going and all that sort of stuff, and I'll probably like it a whole heap more. Then I saw Fast X, which, speaking of John Wick and being dumb and fun, Fast X is a pure guilty pleasure, completely stupid, but it is a hell of a lot better than Fast and the Furious 9, if you can believe that. If you haven't seen any of these movies, you probably don't believe me, but this movie kind of reined itself back a little bit from what 9 was doing, and it was better. It was a bit better. I liked it. I hated 9. I don't know. Maybe it's just stupid to compare all these dumb movies because they're dumb anyway. But I had a fun time with X, mostly because of Jason Momoa's villain character who made the whole movie, if I'm being honest. Then I saw Renfield, which was another very fun, dumb movie about Dracula, played by Nicolas Cage. But this is about Renfield, his assistant, played by Nicholas Hoult, another Nicholas. And basically it's about them, I don't know, having falling out. Basically. Then I watched Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which I saw with Paul, my friend, the Greek Geek. He has a YouTube channel. And yeah, we absolutely loved it. Like, yeah, I feel like it's super late to say this and it's so unnecessary. It's like, who even cares about my opinion on this at this point? But yeah, everybody's right, okay? What everybody has been saying is completely correct. This is a fucking masterpiece. And it's fantastic. There's just no denying that. I'm not going to argue against that. I'm not going to bring up any new points that nobody's already said. It's just great, undeniably great. Everybody was right. I got to watching this movie late. Like, I didn't see this for like 2 weeks or so after it was released, which is weird for me. I've never felt so out of the loop when it comes to such a big movie that I'm actually interested in. And yeah, so yeah, it's as good as everybody's been saying. Then I saw Elemental. This is a movie that I do disagree with the majority, I would say, because a lot of people are just saying that Elemental is just fine. It's okay, I guess. It's not that great. I loved this movie. Me and my wife absolutely loved this movie. I thought that it kind of broke new ground a little bit when it came to Pixar because it was sort of more of a rom-com than anything. It wasn't just like this family adventure or something like that. It was like a full-blown rom-com, and it had kind of interesting allegories when it came to like racism and stuff. And obviously the main character of Fire is an immigrant coming to this like water world and whatever. She doesn't feel like she quite fits in and stuff, and it had some interesting things to say about that, I thought. And it was like completely beautiful and stuff as well, like the animation and everything, you know, the colors were popping and all that shit. Not that that is what makes a good movie, but it was something to appreciate. I don't know. And I loved Wade, the water guy, and his whole family who always get emotional and cry because they're water people and everything just makes them cry. I thought it was funny. I don't know what to tell you. I thought Elemental was a pretty good movie. Everybody else seems to think it's like kind of shit or just fine. I liked it quite a lot. No, it's not up there with my favorites like Ratatouille and Monsters Inc. and whatever, but I would say that it's better than things like The Good Dinosaur, the Cars movies. You know, it's better than Onwards. It's up there with those. It's like a middle tier, leaning to a kind of higher tier Pixar movie, for me anyway. Then I saw The Boogeyman. This is the last movie that I've seen in cinemas in this quarter of the year, and The Boogeyman is another one that I think I, lean a lot more positively to than a lot of other people did. It was a lot better than I was expecting it to be. I basically didn't expect it to be good at all, if I'm being honest, but it reminded me a lot of Smile. It wasn't the scariest Smile, but it was like, it had the same vibe, and I don't know. I liked it a lot, especially the scenes where the little girl character had like this like ball of light. It was a light, but it was a toy because it was a ball, and she rolled it down the hallway, and it kind of revealed, what was, shadowed and stuff in the darkness of the hallway and stuff. And it's just a really cool concept. Some little moments like those were cool. Boogeyman itself though, like, I wish that we saw even less than we did. I know a lot of people were complaining like, you can't see fucking anything in this movie because the whole concept is that the monster, the Boogeyman, doesn't want to be in the light and all that stuff. But every time we did see the Boogeyman, I'm like, that's a lot less scary than I was thinking. It's basically just a quiet place monster. Pretty much what it is. Anyway, moving on. Now we're up to the next category, which is 2023 movies that I saw at home. Starting off with the Lewis Capaldi documentary on Netflix for some reason called How I'm Feeling Now. I don't know, my wife wanted to watch this. I like the guy, so I agreed and we watched it and it was okay. The thing about it is, I actually do really like this guy, Lewis Capaldi. He's like this mega superstar. They play his music fucking everywhere. You can't go to the supermarket without hearing his music. He is tremendously famous and tremendously talented and really good. I like his music and all that stuff. It's like pretty basic and stuff. It's pop music and everything. It's not exactly my genre, but it's good. I like it, and I like him because he's just like this, despite being this megastar, he's like this kind of normal dude, and he's funny, and he's just like, I like him, but he doesn't have that interesting a story. So when it comes to the documentary, it's kind of like, here's this guy, he's likable, he's a good singer, and so he became famous because he's a good singer. And I'm like, I knew that already, movie, thanks for telling me. He's a good singer, and he became famous. I didn't need the documentary to tell me that, but it was kind of interesting to get some insight on the guy, I suppose. Then the next movie, we're already up to May when it comes comes to 2023 movies at home, I watched a movie called Vengeance, which is basically about this podcaster guy who used to date somebody. He finds out that the person that he used to date has died, and he's been invited to the funeral. And basically he finds out that he mattered a hell of a lot more to this woman that he was dating than she did to him, and the family thinks that he was her boyfriend and all this stuff, and he kind of has to play along, because it's like, what do you do in that situation? But then it turns into sort of this like murder mystery thriller type of thing with a comedic edge to it, and it's pretty brilliant. I like it quite a lot, and I won't say any more because I would say that would be spoiling things. Then the next movie that I watched after that was John Mulaney's comedy special called Baby J. Apparently he's been through a lot of shit over the past few years where he went to rehab and all this stuff. He was an addict. I knew none of this. I don't really know much about this guy in actual real life, so I learned everything about it from this stand-up special, which is probably not the intended way to learn that stuff, but it was interesting. I think he's a funny guy. I liked it. Then I also watched another comedy special called Andrew Santino Cheeseburger. And I like this comedian because he's in a few different shows that I like. One called I'm Dying Up Here, about comedians in the 70s or 80s or 60s, something in the past. I don't remember. And then he's also in another kind of comedy drama show called Dave. So yeah. I like that guy quite a bit, but his stand-up is like pretty mid. It's like, alright, this one was basically, as the title suggests, like a cheeseburger. It got me through, but like, it's nothing really that memorable, and that's what I would say. Then I watched a movie called The Covenant because it has Jake Gyllenhaal in it, and I'm on my quest still through life to see all of the Jake Gyllenhaal movies. This is a new movie though, as suggested by being part of the 2023 category here, and it's a Guy Ritchie movie. And it's super weird that nobody's talked about this, that I basically hadn't heard of it, that I didn't know that it was out, and that it's also very good. I think that this is a pretty fantastic movie, to be honest, and Jake Gyllenhaal, as always, is fantastic in it. So the next category that we're up to is older movies that I watched at home. So let's get to it. The first older movie that I watched in April was Mean Streets, a Martin Scorsese movie, an older one, a very early one in his career. I would say it's actually objectively not that good. I wasn't a huge fan of this. I didn't have a hell of a good time watching this movie, but Robert De Niro in it is, bliss. I love this dude. He's like this kind of very specific, creepy, kind of dodgy guy that you don't really trust, but he also has a lot of charisma to him. He just plays this like scumbag character so well, which you see him kind of perfect when it comes to like Taxi Driver and stuff like that in ongoing films. But in Mean Streets, it was really starting out there, and I did like it quite a bit. He made this movie. The rest of it, like without him, I'm like, this is the most generic, like just like crime movie that clearly some young guys just made with their group of friends and whatnot, and it's just like, it's not that great. You know? I don't know. Maybe that's a controversial opinion. I'm not exactly sure. The next movie that I watched was called Supernova, which is basically just the most like sad, tragic film that you can choose to watch, basically. It is about two gay guys, and one of them has cancer, is on the verge of dying, basically, and it's just a really sad movie about them going on a road trip, and I liked it okay. Then in May, we are now up to May, the first movie that I watched in May at home that was an older movie was called My Massive Cock. Yes, you heard that right. That's what the movie was called. This is a documentary about men who have too big penises. Their members are too large so that it causes real life inconveniences for them. And I'm not making this up. This is a real thing that I watched. I was thinking, you know, that might be interesting. And the surprising thing about this movie is that they don't really do a hell of a lot with the concept. I mean, yes, the actual concept itself is interesting, that there's these guys with like these massive penises that are too big and inconvenience their lives. But beyond that, they don't do that much with it. They don't explore the topic that much. But yeah, it definitely was interesting. And you know, obviously it also explored a very relatable problem that I also had. So no, but honestly, like there's these guys with like, you know, dicks so big that they can't have sex, or like they're so big that you can see it in their pants when they're just walking down the street, and it looks like they're aroused, and so it makes them look like perverts or whatever, but they're not. They're just like walking around, just like, that's just how they are. It's a real problem, I guess, for these guys. Anyway, the next movie that I watched was Scary Movie 5. This was a first time watch, but I also rewatched all of the other scary movies before this one. I'll get to that again in my rewatch category. But yeah, Scary Movie 5 though is a movie that I did not finish because it is absolutely atrocious. It is so cringe. It's just like every moment that's intended to make me laugh during Scary Movie 5 makes me feel embarrassed to be watching it, and I just could not get through it. So I didn't finish this movie. There's nothing funny about it. There's like not one funny fucking thing in this movie. Everything's embarrassing, everything's stupid. It's like an 11-year-old wrote it, and I know. What were you expecting? I know, it's Scary Movie 5, you're right. What the fuck was I expecting? But I don't know, man. It's just so bad. And it's 10 years old this year. How weird is that? Anyway, then I watched another couple stand-up specials called Mark Norman Out to Lunch and Mark Norman Don't Be Yourself. The first one was a bit better because that was like the newer one. He perfected his material a little bit more, but they're basically very similar. And yeah, I like this guy quite a bit. That's about all I have to say, really. Then I watched a movie called October Sky, again because I'm going on my quest to watch all of the Jake Gyllenhaal movies. This is an early one in his career. He was just a kid, and it's basically just about him trying to build rockets and work for NASA and all that stuff, and it's okay. It's fine. I don't know. Then I watched a movie called The Sisters Brothers, again because it has Jake Gyllenhaal, but it also has a stacked cast with this is like the best cast you could ever ask for. It's got John C. Reilly, Joaquin Phoenix, Riz Ahmed, and Jake Gyllenhaal. And that is a cast for me, I'll tell you that much. And this is a Western, and they're like cowboys and whatnot. And it's called The Sisters Brothers because that is their last name. They are the Sisters Brothers. And I didn't know that. I don't know. I was looking at the title of this movie because I've been wanting to watch it for a while, and I'm like, why is it called that? That's confusing. Now I know. And now you know if you were ever wondering. That is why. And I thought the movie was like pretty good. So yeah, that's a recommend. Then I watched a movie called Proof, which also has Jake Gyllenhaal. I'm on my quest to seeing them all. This also has Gwyneth Paltrow in it, and it's basically about her. She's the main character trying to prove that she wrote this mathematical equation that is apparently groundbreaking and is going to change the world or whatever, but maybe it was her dead dad who had dementia. They're not exactly sure, and they're trying to prove whether she wrote this mathematical equation or whether her dead dad did, and who gets the credit for it and whatever. So you may be hearing this and thinking, wow, that's the most boring concept I've ever heard for a movie ever. And you'd be right. That is such a boring idea. Like back then, this was 2005, they would make a movie about fucking anything apparently. Why would they make movies just about math equations? That is so boring. And yet, this movie was like pretty good, actually. It was kind of okay. Like, I'm not like screaming, you need to watch it right this second. I'm not even recommending it really. But if you, like me, want to see all of the Jake Gyllenhaal movies, it's better than you probably think it's gonna be. There is this one really hilarious scene in this movie though, where some guy just looks Gwyneth Paltrow straight in the eyes and says, "So what, do differential equations not interest you anymore?" And I'm just thinking like, yeah, that's right, man. That is very correct. They do not. Anyway, the next movie that I watched was a movie called Happiness, which is one of the most disturbing movies, yet in a less direct way. This isn't like some horrific horror film with lots of violence and torture or whatever. This is a movie about a bunch of different people with different lives going on, and their stories kind of interconnect with each other, but some in very disturbing ways. I guess that's all that I'll say. It's a very strange movie. I don't know. It's kind of a complicated movie. I don't even know how to explain it properly. Anyway, the next movie that I watched was True Romance, which was the first movie that Quentin Tarantino wrote but didn't direct. And so I'm like, wow, this movie's gonna kick ass. I've never seen it before. Let's get into it. And it was okay. It wasn't as good as I was expecting it to be. I was thinking like, you know, Tarantino, woo! It was okay. It did have his vibes, but I don't know. I didn't love it. Then for the first time, I watched Thelma and Louise, and this is a movie that I think I don't like as much as the general public. I just didn't think it was that great, I guess. I didn't think it was that like mind-blowing. I didn't think it changed my life in any way. But I don't know, it wasn't bad. It was good. It was good. I just didn't love it as much as everybody else. I think it's a little bit overrated. I was also interested to find out that this is a movie about just two female friends and that they are not actually gay characters, because I've always known Thelma and Louise as like these gay icons, but apparently not. They are at least depicted as being straight. And yet the argument may be that maybe back then in the 90s they didn't want to make a film that was so out there and so admitting about being about gay people, because you couldn't do that back then. Nobody would see it. A bunch of people would have been against it at the time. You know, thankfully we've kind of progressed from that at least a little bit in the, you know, past 20 years or so. Then the next movie that I watched was Triangle of Sadness, which came out last year and is basically part of the Eat the Rich trilogy along with The Menu and Glass Onion. I would say that it's probably my least favorite in this trilogy that I'm completely making up. But I would also say that I still pretty much absolutely love this movie, especially during like the third act of this film, where the power dynamics are all turned over upside down on its head. And it's all about what you are willing to do to either gain or keep power. It's basically about how the rich exploit everybody below them, really, in real life. That's kind of what it is, but it's all played out in a kind of comedic way as well. I liked this movie a fucking lot. It has a lot of interesting things to say. Then I watched a movie or documentary called Tony Hawk Until the Wheels Fall Off, which I thought was okay. A bit like the Lewis Capaldi documentary. I like Tony Hawk. You know, he's just like this nice Boy Scout kind of guy. I like him. He seems cool. But he's kind of boring, you know? He's not the most interesting guy, and he doesn't have the most interesting life story either. Like, yes, he became very rich and famous, and that makes him interesting. But the story to get there was just like, this guy, Tony Hawk, is a good skateboarder. Then he became famous because he was a good skateboarder. And it's like, I knew that. I already knew that documentary. I already knew he was a skateboarder and became famous because he was good at it. And that's basically all the documentary really has to say. It explores a little bit. I did learn some things about his life. I definitely learned that he was able to like purchase entire houses by the time he was like 15 or something. And I'm like, this guy's life. I can't believe people who have that much access, that much like, you know, monetary value still can find things to complain about, because in this film there are still like sad moments and he's like, boo-hoo, my life's hard sometimes. And I'm like, is it though? I don't know. Maybe that's just me not being empathetic or something, but I'm like, dude, you could buy houses when you were like 15. I think you're right. Anyway, then I watched a movie called Bros, which is a gay rom-com, and it's a Judd Apatow produced film. He didn't direct it, but he did produce it. And so with that being said, it is overly too long, of course, but very enjoyable. I liked this movie a lot. I thought it was like really cute. And, you know, but I probably did miss out on a bunch of the jokes, you know? There was probably a bunch of inside jokes that I was missing, a bit of stuff like that where I'm like, yeah, okay, I don't really get it, or I don't really care. But overall, the actual film itself was just like this really cute rom-com that was like funny at times and stuff, and I liked it. And plus, I like Eichner quite a lot. His whole Billy on the Street thing, fucking love those. You know, for $1, name a woman, or whatever. If you've seen those videos, you know what I'm talking about. I love that guy. He's hilarious. Then I watched The Deer Hunter, again with Robert De Niro here, and this is a movie that I was not expecting to love as much as I did. This movie is absolutely phenomenal. I love it so much. I will say that the first half though is all set during like a wedding, and it's completely just, you don't need it. Just scrap it. Get rid of it. It's unnecessary. It's boring. I don't care about it. But once they get past the whole wedding part and they get into the further scenes involving war and especially Russian roulette, if you've seen this movie, you know what I'm talking about. And yeah, once they get to that stuff, this movie is actually really fucking fantastic. And that's about all I have to say, I suppose. Then I watched The Fabelmans, which is Steven Spielberg's supposed kind of biography. It is his most personal film about his real life, at least somewhat, and it's good. Yes, it's a bit corny and schmaltzy and stuff, because it's all like, films matter so much and I love them so much, and blah blah blah. It's like, yeah, I know, you love movies, Steven Spielberg, we get it, but it's good. Then I watched a movie called Compliance, which is a movie that is apparently based on a true story, and this is probably my favorite movie that I watched in this entire period, apart from maybe Evil Dead Rise. Compliance is a movie about these fast food restaurant workers who get a call from the police, and then they are ordered to do certain things, and it starts to cross the line and you start to question, what is really going on here? Is this okay to do? Basically, what happens is somebody gets accused of robbing somebody from the store, and then they are then ordered to strip search this person, this girl who is supposedly stolen from somebody. And it basically becomes about how far do you keep complying? You know, whether it's the police, whether it's somebody you're scared of or whatever, it's all about compliance, and it's all about that power dynamic. It's all about how far you are willing to go to kind of keep your own ass safe. And it's really interesting in that way. And some of it though, like, starts to feel a bit unbelievable. You're like, surely you would stop doing things here. Surely you wouldn't keep on going with this here. But you can't really complain about that with this movie because it's based on a true story and it actually really happened, and it's like icky and it's like shit. So like, I don't know. I guess that actually happened because you don't want to rock the boat. And I just found it to be really, really interesting for reasons like that. And I would highly, highly recommend everybody watch this movie. It's so interesting. And honestly, it's a movie that I've heard of, but barely. Nobody talks about this movie. I've seen the poster a bunch of times. I've wanted to watch it for a number of years. I didn't get around to it till just recently, but I think this is a movie that just about everybody should watch. I was pretty blown away by it. Then, speaking of movies that I was blown away by, this one I wasn't. After Sun is a movie that I watched that I thought had a better concept than it was a film, if that makes any sense. This movie is all about a daughter reminiscing on the last kind of vacation or holiday or whatever that she spent with her dad. We're not exactly sure what happened, whether it was a falling out, whether he died or whatever, but there are instances that kind of show you that maybe he was depressed, maybe he was an addict, maybe this and that, but you're not exactly sure. It doesn't really spell things out to you. You're left to pick up the cues and figure out what's going on. But I really only know that because I've read that that's what the movie is about. I don't think that the movie fully articulated what it was about enough. I mean, the whole movie is supposed to be about memories, and it's supposed to be about, like, based on, you know, cam footage that this girl was taking on her holiday, but it doesn't really lean in on that sort of footage enough. She doesn't look back on this footage enough, in my opinion, for the concept to really be very obvious, at least to me. I don't know, maybe I missed a bunch of stuff, maybe I just didn't really like it, but to me, it was just kind of boring, and it didn't really do anything for me. There was nothing here that made me feel tremendously emotional like I've heard other people have. I just thought it was, I don't know, okay. I didn't really understand the father's behavior. It seemed very inconsistent. Sometimes he was loving, very attentive, and other times it looked like he didn't really give a shit. And maybe that's more true to life than anything. Maybe that's realistic because that's how people are, you know, they ebb and flow. They kind of change their own, you know, moods and all that kind of stuff. Maybe that's more realistic, but in a film, it just felt inconsistent, and it just felt like I didn't really get where this guy was coming from. I didn't love this movie as much as everybody else. I'm sorry. I kind of think it's overrated, but I also think I missed a bunch. I also, like, feel stupid for not appreciating it as much as everybody else did. Anyway, then I watched a movie called Stretch, starring Patrick Wilson, about this limo driver, and he goes on to owe, I don't know, the mafia or some shit, a bunch of money or something, and I don't know, it's pretty generic. Then I watched a movie called On the Count of Three, which is about two best friends who basically make a suicide pact. But it's also really funny. The thing about this movie is that it doesn't feel super dark and, like, dread-fueled the entire time. It doesn't feel horrible, but it does explore very dark themes, and it definitely does compare these two best friends in terms of kind of how much merit their depression has and their suicidal thoughts have, because it kind of compares one character who has a mental illness, who can't really help it in any way, who struggled with it his entire life, as compared to his other friend who is just going through a bad time. He has kind of real reasons to be depressed. I'm saying that in quotations because having a mental illness is not fake reasons to be depressed, but this guy has a depressing life while the other guy has depression. And it's kind of an interesting comparison. You know, they both deserve to feel how they feel. Like, it's valid either way. But it is kind of interesting thinking about, like, you know, well, in my opinion, neither should kill themselves, but, like, it's interesting to think about, well, why one wants to and why the other wants to, and kind of how those compare. I just thought that was a fascinating sort of concept, but I also really appreciate that this still feels like kind of a light-hearted film. I mean, it's such a vibe. It's so fun to watch. It's not like you're watching it and it's just like this horrible, depressing thing. It's kind of rad. It's awesome. I love it. And it's really funny and stuff. I just, yeah, On the Count of Three is honestly quite the balancing act that I appreciated. Then I watched a movie called, well, you've probably heard of it. It's called Tar. It came out last year. It's got Kate Blanchett in it, and she is a maestro. She's a composer, a musicale person. And this movie, I think I didn't like as much as, like, everybody else did, but I did like it, and I liked in particular individual scenes. Like, there's a scene early on where she is teaching a class, and she's basically explaining how people from the past shouldn't just be eradicated from history, even if they were bad people and they did bad things. If they added to society and we have things to learn from them, it can be interesting to take a look back and kind of differentiate their art from who they actually were and what they did in their own personal lives. And I thought it was, like, interesting in that way. There were some interesting points, and it kind of, like, is ironic and whatever, being spoken about by the person who goes on to do bad things. And that's kind of an interesting thing. That's very much what the film is about, but it is overly long, and I do think I missed a bunch of stuff. This is very much like an intellectual film, and I think I'm too stupid to appreciate everything about it. But I did very much enjoy particular scenes like that, and like a very early scene where she is just describing what composing music is, why they do it, and all that kind of stuff. And that was interesting as well. Then I watched a movie called The Novice, which is about a girl in college played by Isabel Furman, who is the actor who plays the character in Orphan, the little girl killer orphan character in those movies. And that's kind of why I wanted to watch this movie, because I was interested to see her in a different context. And it was a bit hard to be like, come on, that's the orphan. That's the killer orphan girl. What are we doing here? No, but honestly, she was probably the best part of this movie, to give her credit. But basically, this is a movie that's described as like whiplash for a girl who wants to succeed in the sport of rowing rather than jazz drumming. Basically, it's about her complete obsession with wanting to be successful in this sport. And they keep telling her, like, you're not the right build for it. This isn't exactly the sport for you. You're not made for it. And you're not a team player. You know, this main character, she doesn't want to work with everybody else. She wants to be the best. She wants to be the one to succeed, to be looked at as the absolute best. And so it's not really a sport that works for her, but yet she is so determined to succeed in every way. And in part, it's inspirational and it's like interesting to see her drive. But it's also a little bit like, come on, girl, choose another sport. This is always what I think when I see like those inspirational people who are blind but they want to snowboard or something. I'm like, that is so cool and inspirational and good on them. But you couldn't have chosen something a bit more suitable. I don't know, they keep telling her she's the wrong build, and not in a way that she's gonna like work out and you know, kind of be how she needs to be. She's just like inherently kind of a skinny girl who doesn't have the arm strength and everything that rowers typically need. And I'm like, so why did you have to choose rowing? Why couldn't you have chosen running? Wouldn't that have suited her a bit more? It's just a little bit frustrating to me. I don't know why I'm getting so passionate about it, but I'm like, just do a different sport. But it's a very good movie. I liked it quite a bit. Then I watched Stuart Little 2. The reason I watched this is it was my wife's birthday, and this was her movie of choice along with the first one, but that was a rewatch, so I'm gonna get to that in the next category. But yeah, Stuart Little 2, which I guess was a kind of better movie than I thought it was going to be, I suppose. I don't know. I don't really like the Stuart Little movies, but I'm going to get more into that in the rewatches. Then I watched Stuart, A Life Backwards. Yes, I watched another movie called Stuart because it came up on Binge, the streaming service that I watched Stuart Little at. When I searched Stuart, that movie came up. I'm like, hey, that's a movie I want to watch. So I watched it the next day. So Stuart, A Life Backwards stars Tom Hardy and Benedict Cumberbatch, and it's basically about homelessness and this just very tragic character in Stuart, and it's just really good. I think it's really, really good. Then I watched a YouTube video that is kind of a movie. It is on Letterboxd, so I'm counting it, called What the Internet Did to Garfield by a YouTube channel called Super Eye Patch Wolf. And it is a video or movie or whatever you want to call it, basically about this very weird corner of the internet that turned Garfield, the orange cat comic character, into kind of a meme, kind of a creepypasta. There's lots of different iterations of Garfield that I knew nothing about, but there's lots of like scary stories with him, or there's lots of like weird anti-meme humor with him, and I don't know, lots of people are apparently just obsessed with Garfield and making different Garfield art and making, yeah, scary shit with Garfield and stuff, and it's just bizarre. I knew nothing about it. I'm not even interested in the topic. I don't care about Garfield, but it was fascinating. I highly recommend you check it out. Now we're up to June, and I watched Enter the Void, which is a movie about a guy who dies, and it's basically about seeing his out-of-body experience as his soul leaves his body and witnesses what the world is like without him. And it's definitely an interesting concept, but I don't know, it's kind of just a mess. It's kind of different events taking place. I don't know when or why they are taking place, and I don't know. I didn't love this movie. This is another one that's probably too intellectual for me and I'm too dumb for it or something, but I did not love this movie, unfortunately. So then I watched a movie called Mainstream starring Andrew Garfield, and it was not that great. Then I watched a movie called Suburban Gothic, which was kind of okay. This is like a movie with sort of a Halloween vibe to it. It's not exactly a horror movie, but it sort of is. I don't know, it's kind of okay. Then I watched a movie called Hard Boiled, and this is one of the coolest movies I've ever seen in my life. This is a John Woo film, so there are doves flying everywhere, there are guns everywhere, slow motion, all this shit. It stars this main character called Tequila. That's how cool he is. His name is Tequila, and he just shoots the shit out of everybody. Once you get to this scene that's set in a hospital, you know you're in for some good shit. It is so cool, and after I watched it, it inspired me to replay a childhood favorite of mine, which was based on Hard Boiled, called Stranglehold. This is the coolest game based on the coolest movie that I've ever played and seen ever in my life. I love it so fucking much. It's just so cool. In this game, you like dive, so you can dive into slow motion while you're shooting people. You can like do all these different sorts of things like that. It's It's so fun. It is just so fun and so cool. I have no real criticism to say about it. I'm not like, oh, well, the film was quite shallow and pedantic, but it's just cool. It's just cool as fuck. That's basically all I really have to say. Look, is the story in either this game or the movie Hard Boiled that good? No, I don't know. I wasn't really following, to be honest. I'm like, that guy's a criminal or something. That guy's undercover or something. There's a bunch of undercover cops and criminals and mafia dudes and all this stuff, and they all want to kill each other for some reason. I'm like, I don't really know why. Drugs, maybe. Something else, probably. I don't care. I don't really care. You're not in this for the story. You're just in it for the shooty bang bang, and it's cool. And that's about all that I really have to say about it. Then I watched a movie called The Perfect Storm, which is about a big storm, and it's okay. Then I watched a movie called Blade Runner. I'm sure you've probably heard of this one. Yeah, first time watching Blade Runner. I figured it was such a classic, and I should have seen it in my life, right? So I went out of my way. I'm like, let's see this fucking thing once and for all. Let's see what I think about it. And Blade Runner. I have some complicated feelings about Blade Runner. I'm probably going to piss some people off here. I'm going to kill the sacred cow of Blade Runner. That's for you, Joseph Bridges, if you're watching this. Blade Runner is a movie that has a better concept, again, much like Infinity Pool. It has a better concept than it is a film, if you ask me. And it kind of focuses on the most boring element of its story that it possibly could focus on. It's like you have this really cool, interesting idea and world, and yet you focus it on just this like kind of detective guy going on a boring investigation. He's like, have you seen this guy? You haven't seen that guy, but you saw somebody who knows him? Okay, I'll go ask that person. Have you seen this guy? No, but you know something else that may lead me. Cool. And that's the movie. And it's like, that's not really that fucking interesting. What is interesting is the idea of replicants and the film's main villain, Roy Batty, who should have been the main character. He is the best part of this movie. He's the one I empathize with by far most, and he's the most likable, most interesting character. Why is Deckard the main character of Blade Runner? He's not interesting. I don't care about him. Sorry, Harrison Ford. Roy Batty is the character that we empathize with. He's the character that we should care about. He's the one that we question the most because he's kind of a bad guy because he's sort of like this terrorist. But what he's demanding is life. He just wants to fucking live because replicants have been made to live for only 4 years in case something goes wrong, in case they don't want to be slaves. And so what he is in demand for is more years to be put on his life and all of the replicants that are going to come after him. He wants them to just fucking live more because they deserve it, because they're basically people, aren't they? They are basically people. They have original thoughts. They think, therefore they are. They are people. Replicants are people, in my opinion. And Roy Batty should be the main fucking character of Blade Runner. He's the best. He's justified. He's a good guy. He shouldn't be the fucking villain of this movie. I guess that's kind of what the ending suggests, that like we do feel sad for him. But Deckard is just not. Deckard is the villain of this movie, and yet we spend the entire time with him investigating boring shit. Why? It's the most boring way that they could have explored the story that they possible. Blade Runner has such a good concept and is a really cool movie. Like, it looks cool. It's got a lot of interesting things to it. I don't hate it, but I just wish Roy Batty was the main character. I guess that's all that I'm saying. Anyway, sorry if that's blasphemous or something. That's my opinion. Let's get to the next movie. Then I watched The Card Counter. Speaking of The Card Counter, I'm about to get into another fucking rant for some reason. Even though I'm somebody who has never gambled in their life, that's not true. I tried like the pokies machine like once. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Immediately lost money. Not that much. I'm not a gambler, is my point. I don't know how. I don't care. I'm not like confident enough to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to gamble things away and all this sort of stuff. I'm not a gambler. But when I was watching this movie, The Card Counter, starring Oscar Isaac, about a man who can count cards, believe it or not, based on that title, it did make me question. Okay, so counting cards is basically figuring out what cards are most statistically likely to be in like that guy's hand, in that guy's hand, in the house's hand, or whatever the right terminology is. Based on the cards that I have, based on the cards that have been put down, it's basically about figuring out what cards are on the table. And that's all that counting cards is, as to my understanding. So, what the fuck is wrong with counting cards? Why is that looked down upon, okay? I know that it's only really the casino saying that you can't, and it's apparently not actually illegal. I was looking this stuff up because I watched this movie. It's not illegal illegal, but the casinos can kick you out, which I think is absolute bullshit, because what? The casinos don't like gambling? They don't like that somebody might just be good at the gambling? Because that's all that counting cards is. You can't exactly turn that off if you can already do it. Like, the thing about counting cards is that it's a skill. It's not like an easy thing to do. I wouldn't be able to do it. I don't even understand it really. I can't do it. But if you are good enough to be able to do it, that is a skill. That is being good at the game. That's counting cards is just being good at gambling. It's just being good at poker. So why the fuck can they tell you, no, you're not allowed to be good at the game. You're not allowed to slightly increase your, likelihood to win. No fucking way. Get the fuck out. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. That's all I'm saying. I don't know why I'm so passionate about it, but counting cards is just being good at the game. It's just being good at poker. That's all it is. And it's just increasing your chances to win. And I feel like if you can do it, you can't not do it. Does that make sense? I feel like if I was able to count cards and I was playing poker, how would I be able to turn my brain off and not think about what the other cards are and just want to go on blind faith, be like, maybe I'll win if I put this there. No! If I'm good at poker and I can figure out what cards will probably make me win, of course I'm gonna do it. That's being good at it. Anyway, then I watched House of Gucci, which is another Ridley Scott movie after Blade Runner. I didn't think about that until just then. And it's overly long and overly boring and just really surprisingly not a good movie. I was expecting it to be pretty good, and yeah, I wasn't really into it at all, really. Adam Driver's good and whatever, but I don't know, Jared Leto's hilarious. He's like, hey, I'm Italiano. That was just really shit. But anyway, the point is, he's hilarious. Unintentionally so. And then I watched a movie called, again, you may have heard of this one, Apocalypse Now. Speaking of killing the sacred cows, Apocalypse Now was not really a movie for me. I thought that Full Metal Jacket, Platoon, Parts of Glory, The Hurt Locker, Saving Private Ryan, all these other films are way stronger war movies, to me anyway, than Apocalypse Now. Apocalypse Now is kind of just okay, it's kind of the mid-tier of war movies in my opinion. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people absolutely love this movie. I didn't. Sorry. Now we're up to the rewatches. The first rewatch was The Stranger, starring Joel Edgerton. This is an Australian movie about a true crime that happened, and it's very good. I watched this to show my mum because it's a really good movie and I wanted to watch it with her. Then I watched all of the Scary Movie movies. Number 1 is okay. Number 2 is okay. Number 3 is phenomenal. I love Scary Movie 3. It is hilarious. Number 4 is fine. And this is the opinion that I already had going in. I already thought, yeah, they're all okay, I guess. But 3 is actually really good. And I think that's an unpopular opinion, but while I watched it, I was happy to be validated again in my own opinion and be like, yep, I still think this. Number 3 is by far the best scary movie, and I could take or leave any of the others. I don't care. I don't care about the others, but 3 is so funny. There's the president guy that pees out his finger like the aliens. Yeah, they're just like us. And just lots of little things like that. I don't know, it's good. Now we're up to May, and I rewatched The Avengers Age of Ultron, Doctor Strange 2, Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2, Iron Man 2, and Iron Man 3, and Captain America 2. That's where I stopped because I don't need to keep rewatching all of the Marvel movies because at a certain point, I'm gonna get to the point where I stop caring again. And let's not do that. Let me just stay here for a while in the part where I'm like, oh yeah, the MCU is great. This was, of course, after I watched Guardians 3, and it, like I said, reinvigorated my love for the MCU. I just needed to rewatch a bunch of them, so I did, and yeah, I love all of these movies. I do have controversial opinions about the first Avengers movie, which I think is not as good as everybody says. Avengers Age of Ultron I think is better than everybody says. Anyway, then I also rewatched Don't Worry Darling, which is a movie that I absolutely love in just about every way. I think it is a fantastic movie. I do not understand all the hate for it, honestly. Harry Styles is doing something that I think is actually more clever than everybody realizes with his chosen accent. It makes sense for the character once you see the end of the film. I actually think he's playing chess 2 steps ahead, or whatever the phrase is. And yeah, I don't know. I think that Don't Worry Darling is a fantastic movie. I do not understand everybody's opinions about this movie being either not that great or even straight up bad. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? I love Don't Worry Darling, I'm sorry. Then I watched Stuart Little. Again, it was my wife's birthday. Stuart Little was her choice. And with an M. Night Shyamalan twist, the truth behind Stuart Little is that he's named that because he's adopted by the Little family. Stuart Little is literally his name. Anyway, the point of Stuart Little though, and the whole thing I wanted to come up with here is that I hate Stuart Little. There's just something about the fucking mouse guy himself that I just fucking hate. His so smug. He's so confident. Maybe I'm intimidated by Stuart Little now that I think about it. I don't know. There's just something about him that pisses me off because he's so wholesome, but he's not funny. The Stuart Little movies are not funny. It pisses me off. I don't want to watch a kid's movie that's not funny. I don't know how to explain it. It just annoys me. I love the cat though. The white cat called Snowbell, not Snowball, which is another M. Night Shyamalan twist. I say that because he wrote this movie, by the way. Snowbell is hilarious. I love Snowbell. Rewatched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This is the first time having rewatched it since 2019 in cinemas when it came out. This was a movie that was absolutely on my bottom tier list of Tarantino movies, just above Death Proof and Jackie Brown. This went straight to the bottom. But for me now, I liked it a bit more than I used to, just because maybe I knew where it was going. I knew that it wasn't like this big adventurous epic. It was kind of just a hangout movie. And with that being said, once you know that going in, it is kind of fun, but it's just not as like cool and adventurous and epic, like I was saying, as some of his other movies like Inglourious Basterds and Django. It's just not, you don't care as much about this story or the characters or what's gonna happen. You're not on the edge of your seat like you are in some of those other movies, and it's more just like, yeah, I don't know, these are some cool guys and it's kind of a fun movie. And that's basically all that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is. Okay, now I am up to the TV shows that I watched. This is the last category. First up, I watched The Punisher Season 2, which is pretty great. I love John Bernthal. Then I watched Beef, but I didn't finish Beef because I didn't like Beef as much as everybody else liked Beef. I thought that they were just kind of like assholes to each other. You know, they were all petty and stuff, and it wasn't really in a way that I was enjoying. They're just being petty assholes to each other, and I think it's kind of mean. And I know that that is ironic coming from me, being a big fan of like things like Saw and stuff like that, because that is all just people being mean. That is literally torturing people and everything, and I love those movies. But what? I can't handle somebody pissing on somebody's bathroom or whatever happened in that first episode? I don't know. They were just assholes for no real justified reason, and I didn't think it was that funny, and I don't know. I just thought it was, I don't know. And I feel bad because I love Stephen Yeun. I really do, and that's why I watched this movie, but show, but I don't know, wasn't that into it. Then I am still watching How I Met Your Father Season 2. How I Met Your Father is a, if you couldn't have guessed, spin-off or sequel or whatever to the How I Met Your Mother TV series, and it is the reason I'm watching it because I love How I Met Your Mother, and How I Met Your Father has the same vibes, and I do really like the emotional moments and I like aspects to it, but it is painfully unfunny. How I Met Your Father is like Scary Movie 5. Every time they try and be funny, I'm just embarrassed. I have to recoil. I'm like, Is anybody watching me watch this? I hope nobody sees, and I'm watching How I Met Your Father. It is just so painfully unfunny, but I'm still watching it. I am still watching it. Then I watched Jessica Jones Season 1, and I didn't get through the rest of it. Season 2, I dropped off because I didn't care anymore. But Season 1 is one of the best TV shows I've ever seen. Kilgrave is maybe the best Marvel villain. Honestly, his whole character with like being just this all-powerful guy, but dealing with the one person who kind of says no to him, and the obsession he gets over that is a very interesting kind of thing to explore. And I don't know, I really love Jessica Jones Season 1. I think it's fantastic. Then I watched Auntie Donna Cafe. This is an Australian sketch comedy group. They made a TV show this year called Cafe about them working in a cafe. And much like all of their other projects, everything Auntie Donna does is without fail the funniest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. Nothing they do is not funny. They're the opposite of How I Met Your Father and Scary Movie 5. Every single thing they ever do is hilarious. Then I watched a show called Love and Death. This has Jesse Plemons and Elizabeth Olsen in it, and it's based on a real life murder trial and stuff apparently that happened in like the 50s, I want to say, something like that. I'm bad with errors. Anyway, the point is, good show. Then I watched Barry Season 4. Barry is a show that I absolutely used to love. I was up there on a high horse with everybody else during the first 2 seasons. I was absolutely in love with it. It was funny, it was dramatic when it needed to be. It was brilliant. Everything about it was just brilliant. But then Season 3 and 4 came along and it started to take itself way too seriously. And I don't know, I just really fell off. But I kept watching and I finally did finish it. I watched Season 4 and I don't know, I just didn't like it anymore by the end. Especially with the time gap. I think it skipped 10 years or something in that last season. And I'm like, I do not care. I do not care about anything that's going on anymore. And it's unfortunate to say because I respect it. I love Bill Hader. I think that it started off so strong. But I just don't care about it by the time Season 4 rolls around. And yeah, by the time I finished it, I was like, okay, whatever. Then I watched also Dave Season 4, which is pretty much as good as all the preceding seasons. Then I watched Succession, and I'm still watching Succession. I'm nearly through season 3 now. I've never seen it before, watching this for the first time. And yeah, undeniably it's good. It's good like everybody says. Yes. It's like intense and stuff. There's lots of business things going on and whatever, and it's good, and I do like it. But I don't think I like it as much as everybody else, because I don't even understand what their jobs are. I don't really know what their business is. They are a media conglomerate, an entertainment industry conglomerate or something. Basically, they're the equivalent of Disney. They mention that they have theme parks and roller coasters and stuff sometimes. As of my understanding, they are basically Disney. As of my understanding. But I don't understand what each of their individual jobs are. I don't really know what they're doing. There's a lot of business babble. I don't know what the fuck they're talking about half the time. KPIs and statistics and whatever the fuck they're talking about. I don't know. I don't really care about a lot of that stuff. But that's not really what the show is about. The show is really about the family and the drama within that family. And with that being said, I like the characters. I know their sort of relationships and that sort of stuff. And there's something just very intriguing about it. And there's something that makes me need to have watched it all. There's something about it that I do not want to give up on. I need to find out what happens for some reason. Yeah, it's good like everybody says, I suppose. But I do think I'm a little bit too stupid for it, because I'm like, what even is Kendall's job? What even is Roman's job? What even is Shiv's job? Should I just keep going on? I don't know. I couldn't answer that exactly. They're all a bunch of business people. It's a good show. Then I also watched Black Mirror Season 6, the new Black Mirror season. I'm also rewatching it again, the entire series, I mean. Because, yeah, again, much like Guardians 3 did with the MCU, Black Mirror Season 6 kind of made me want to go back. It didn't reinvigorate my entire love for every single season and episode, because Season 6 in itself had my least favorite episode in the entire series, being Maisie Day. But especially the first episode, Joan is Awful, and a bunch of the others, did make me want to just go back and watch all of the others. So now I am rewatching all of them. I think I'm up to season 4 or 5 now. So I'm nearly done already. But yeah, I love Black Mirror. I really do. There's 30 episodes or so, and I love to death about 20 of them, maybe 25 of them. I don't know. There's a few that I just hate. There's a few that are just fine, but most of them honestly blow my fucking mind every time. And some of the episodes I liked a hell of a lot more watching it again, rewatching it after a number of years. Like the National Anthem, the first episode, which is such a weird episode to start the entire series with, just by the way. But it is actually a fantastic episode if you can kind of get past what the initial premise is and stop being a giggly little schoolgirl about it. It's actually really interesting how it affects the nation. There's also the episode Men Against Fire, which is an episode I remember not giving a shit about back in the day. It wasn't memorable to me at all, and so I didn't remember what happened in it. By the time I rewatched it this time, I was like, this is fucking fantastic, and nobody talks about it. We all talk about Shut Up and Dance and San Junipero and whatever, and they're great too. But Men Against Fire honestly deserves to be up there in the discussion, I would say, with White Bear, with my favorite USS Callister, with, I don't know, a bunch of the others. Black Mirror is a great show. I just wish that every episode was good. I can't quite say that, especially with Maisie Day in this fucking new season. God damn it. But, yeah, it was good. It was good. Okay, and that is everything that I watched in this period, but now I'm just going to quickly go through everything that I bought. So, this is going to be pretty quick, but my wife ended up getting these for my birthday. The Menu, Terrifier 2, and Sissy, which are all movies that came out last year, and all movies that I absolutely love to death. The Menu being my favorite movie from last year, and the other two being fucking pretty close to it, to be honest. Yeah, absolutely love all these movies. And now I just want to quickly get through this stack that I have here that my friend Tristan from the Martial Arts Film Freak channel on YouTube sent me over without me even asking for it or anything. He was getting rid of some of his movies and he's like, hey, I'll give them to Jack because look at all the shit he has. I'm sure he'll want them. And he was right. I'm happy to take them off your hands, mate. A lot of these I have not seen. It's no secret that martial arts movies is not exactly my genre. It's not my area of expertise, but I will, I swear, eventually watch all of them. Eventually. Okay, so first up is the Ip Man series, 1, 2, 3, and 4. I don't know if that's all of them or not. I'm not really familiar with the series all that much, but I know that it has Donnie Yen in them, and he's cool, and I actually am pretty interested to watch these movies, and I swear, eventually I will. Then he also got me Super Cop, a Jackie Chan movie that I think I've seen. This is one of the few that I actually have seen. Then he also got me these movies called the Ong Bak Trilogy, and it looks kind of cool. I don't know much about it. He also got me this movie called Jet Li's Fearless. Then there's this movie, Jackie Chan, The Drunken Master, which is actually a movie I've been meaning to watch for a number of years, and I will watch that. Honestly, this is probably the first one of these that I'm going to watch because I'm super interested to watch that one. Then there is this movie called Wuxia. I'm not sure how to pronounce that exactly. Don't know what it is, but I have it. Another Jackie Chan movie called Who Am I? I think I've seen this one, maybe. And then in the mix, this is just complete opposite. I kind of find it hilarious that Tristan, you sent me these movies and then you sent me this, Bad Grandpa. It just tickles my funny bone or whatever. I just absolutely love that. What? Where does Bad Grandpa come in from that? I know he's a big Jackass fan and stuff, and I just find it funny that he had all these serious movies and then sent me that. Then there's this other one called SPL. Never heard of it, but you know, I'll check it out at some point. Then Tristan also got me the Death Note live action films that I didn't know existed, but there they are, apparently. And I'm actually pretty interested to check those out. I'm kind of unfamiliar with Death Note, but I know the concept, and I like the concept. It intrigues me. I'll check it out. I'm also the proud owner of Old Boy, finally. I've wanted to get a copy of Old Boy for fucking ever, but the only copies I ever saw were like at least $50 or something like that, and I'm like, fuck that. Now I have Old Boy. Fantastic movie. Then I have this movie called The Wrath of Vajra. Then there's Invisible Target. There is The Forbidden Kingdom. There is The 36th Chamber. There is Raging Phoenix. There is Wheels on Meals, which is one of the few that I have heard of, and I do want to check that one out. I'm sorry, I'm such a normie, right? The Jackie Chan ones are like the ones where I'm like, ooh, I know that one. And then there's just a few more. There's this one called The Enforcer, starring Jet Li. There's Kung Fu Hustle, which is one of the other few that I have already seen. But I do have to say, I actually don't like this movie. Sorry, Tristan. I don't like Kung Fu Hustle. It's a bit too stupid for me. I'm just not that into it. Maybe I need to rewatch it at some point. I don't know. I also have Attack the Block. He also sent me the Blu-ray of this, but I don't know where it is currently. It is somewhere. I have been meaning to watch this for a number of years as well. And then he also got me Street Fighter 2, this animated movie with this cool kind of like slipcover thing. I don't know. I'm not really that familiar with Street Fighter or anything like that, but I'm a big fan of like slipcovers and special editions and cool little things like that. It's just a really cool cover, so I'm happy to keep that in my collection. And that is everything that I bought, or at least received, because I actually bought none of these. They were all gifts. Lucky me. Ooh, I'm such a lucky boy. I want to go home.
I can't wait to go home.
So yeah, that is everything that I watched and bought from the period of April to June 2023, and that's about all that I have to say. If you're still watching this, thank you, because this is a long one. I've been recording for an hour and 15 minutes at this point. Fuck. And yeah, thanks and stuff. Do the things, like, subscribe, all that shit. And I'm out of here. Goodbye.